If you have a startup idea or an app idea, but you're just not sure where to start or how you make it into a profitable business, then these are the 4 key things that you need to do in order to go from idea to your first paying customer and beyond. If you don't know me, my name is Chris, and for the last 15 years I've been designing apps and advising startups on product and design, and I believe the next wave of incredible businesses is going to be built using these AI tools. So with that said, let's get into it.
Build great product. Build great product.
So this is my idea to profit journey, aka make a good app that actually makes money. So how do you make an app? How do you make a startup if you have an idea for one that is actually going to make money? I've done another video on how to validate and interrogate your ideas before you actually build anything, and that's really the first step here as well. So there's a 4-step process to actually building an app, building a startup that is then going to go on to grow, and under each of these 4 pillars are a few key things that you need to be doing. And so let's go through each one and identify where we're starting, how do we validate, how do we distribute, how do we build something, and then how do we grow it. So the first thing here is validation. So by validation, I mean we need to have a validated idea. A validated idea is an idea that we have confidence is going to work. And so we first need to get an idea. And so where do you get the idea from? You can get the idea from a number of places, but a really good place to start is to think about what skills do I have? What processes do I do, and what problems exist in those processes, because this really gives you like a clear problem to solve that you also experience, and so you have a unique perspective on it through your own skills. If you don't want to start there, you can do research into different industries or different markets or different communities and find problems to solve for those people. But really, the closer that you are to the problem and the more skin in the game that you have for solving that problem, the more likely this is to succeed, because you have a kind of personal attachment to solving that problem and to that idea that you're building. And so another way to think about this is to think about, who do I like helping, or who do I want to help the most, and what problems are they experiencing? And you can then go and look for those people or speak to those people if you know them in real life as well, and start to identify those problems that you can solve. Now, I would validate this by using my startup smoke test method, which I've detailed in my other video, which I'll also link to in this description, and I'll try and put up a link at this point in the video so that you can go to it as well. Essentially, the startup smoke test method is 7 questions to ask yourself in order to validate your idea. And so this is basically, am I solving a problem? Can I solve this problem? Is the solution valuable or unique? Can I compete in this market? Is it a painful problem? And can I actually build this? And what we're going to get out of validation is, what we're looking for is confidence in this solution I'm building, i.e. the app that I'm creating or the product that I'm creating. Basically that I know people will buy this. And that's going to give us our starting point. So what a lot of people will do in the startup journey is they jump straight to this one, build. And especially with tools nowadays like Lovable and Replit and Cursor and Windsurf and all of these amazing AI coding tools, it's so easy to have an idea and jump straight into the build and think, there we go, I've done it. But actually there's so much other stuff, creative thinking, interrogation, strategy around this, which you need to put in place in order to build an app and a product, a startup that's going to be successful and it's going to have the best chance of growing and actually getting paying customers, that we need to do some work before we actually get stuck into that. And a really good way of doing this is you can also say to ChatGPT or any LLM of your choice, I've got this startup idea and I want you as a startup advisor to help me interrogate my idea, improve it, make it better, give me some ways of validating it, help me create some ideas for distribution and then give me instructions on how to build it, basically you can just ask ChatGPT or any LLM to just help you to do this. But I wanted to go through the steps here visually to kind of show you the steps that you do have to go through in order to get the best kind of possible chance of your idea working. Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for product builders who actually want to make a profit from what they're building. If you're building a product, whether that be a SaaS tool, a web app, an iOS app, or an Android app, and you actually want to make a profit, then this is the community for you. It's called the Product to Profit Academy. I'll be sharing courses, tutorials, tips, and all of my frameworks that I've learned over the last 15 years of working with startups and advising startups on product and design in my Product to Profit blueprint, so that you can benefit from everything that I've learned when you're building your product. So if you're building something and you actually want to make a profit from it, head over to buildgreatproducts.com/profit to sign up to the waitlist. We're launching soon. Once you've got validation, you want to go on to distribution. So distribution is about a few things. Distribution now is about building an audience. And this is around like a founder-led brand. On LinkedIn, the visibility of business pages and actually the visibility of business pages across all social media is hugely diminished because the attention that goes to actual real people is so much higher than just entities, which are companies or businesses. And so from a distribution point of view, you really need to be willing, in order to make your idea successful, to have a presence in your content and to have a presence in building that audience. And what we want to do with our content is just to like test formats of content and see what gets traction. And you might want to think about this. A really good framework that I found for doing this was actually from Matt Gray, who is the founder of FounderOS. And his framework is to have a thesis, which is your belief about the thing that you're creating, and then 3 pillars that sit under that, which is how to solve the problem. And what you're doing with your content, is basically equal to showing how you do the solution. So if you're a web design agency, for example, the content is about showing you doing incredible web design and why it works, why it's better than others. If you had a SaaS tool, for example, which was helping people look at social media and find trending posts and trending topics, your content would be showing people how to find those topics and showing the results from that. All of the content should be really focused around like the thing that you're trying to sell, the product or the app idea that you're trying to build. We want to be showing people, not telling them. We want to be showing people how to do this. So just like me showing you this framework of like these steps to go through in order to strategically build an app that has the highest chance of being profitable, we want to show people the steps to go through either using our product or using our app, or the steps that we go through to get the solution that people are paying for in order to build trust and to actually prove to people that we can do it, basically. So to kind of do what I'm preaching, I am going to be creating a video series which is going to be me building an app and actually getting my first customer and recording that full journey. So if you want to see that, then subscribe to the channel. Those videos will be up soon. I'll be going through building the app, getting a customer, all the steps through these frameworks that I went through to actually do that with one of my ideas, just to show you how it's done, how you can actually get to the point where you have paying customers on an app. And just to cover off a few other bits around distribution, if you're trying to figure out like, well, it takes time to create content for social, it takes a lot of effort to create all of these assets, to build an audience, how do you even start to think about building an audience when you have to do that over and over and over again for such a long period of time? There are tools now that can help you do that. Think about how you use AI, even if you're just using ChatGPT. Think about a really good starting point for this could be something like, get ChatGPT 4.5 up, ask it to go to Reddit and look through posts in the communities of people that you want to sell the product to that experience the problem that you're solving, and then to provide you with a bunch of content ideas. Look up content that's done well in your niche, in your industry, on social platforms, steal those formats, get ChatGPT to write the content out in those different formats for you, schedule all of that content using something like Buffer or Hypefury or Typefully to these different social platforms, and just test those different formats and see what gets traction. And the last point here really is, if something isn't working, change it. It's all a test, and you can jump back and forwards between any of these steps. This is laid out in a linear kind of fashion, but this is not necessarily a linear journey. So you might go from here back to here, or you might go from build back to validation again if you need to. It's all an iterative process, and the key is to get started and try something, because then you will start to learn, and then you'll start to understand what you actually need to build. So let's go on to build. So build is about, how do I actually build this? So the best way that I would start thinking about this is to think about, what is my MVP and what does it look like? For your MVP, you want to have one feature. You also want to start working back and forwards with a LLM like ChatGPT. So work with AI to figure out the framework or the user journeys or the features. And just tell ChatGPT that you're trying to build this thing. You want to start to figure out, what do these features look like? Chances are when you get to this point, you have an idea of how you're going to solve the problem, but you might not know exactly how to build that in like an app or a product step by step. Like, what does that look like? What buttons do I click? What steps do I go through? And so get ChatGPT or any other LLM to help you to figure out what those steps are. And from that, you want to create what's called a PRD. And so a PRD is a product requirements document, and you want to use the PRD in your AI tool to build your first version. So use the PRD that you've created. You can use something like ChatPRD, or there's a bunch of other tools out there that can create a PRD for you using AI off the back of your idea. Make sure you go back and forth enough with ChatGPT, with whatever AI that you're kind of talking to and using to flesh out your idea, to get that big picture, and then edit these things as you go. So you don't necessarily have to use the first version of the PRD that you get back. You can then edit that and refine it. Keep the AI in check at this point, because the AI, it loves to add extra features, extra functionality, especially if you've used Replit. You know that it always comes up with like, I've built this for you, here's 5 other ideas that I could build, and it's really tempting to say, oh yeah, I'd love that feature. But actually, like, just keep it really, really simple. Keep your MVP simple and light. And you want to have a very simple version that you can get out quickly, people, to prove that this is actually going to work. I forgot one thing that I wanted to actually mention on distribution, is that when you're building out your distribution and your content and your audience, is that a really good way to understand whether you're going to get traction when you actually launch your product is just to start with a simple waitlist landing page. If you're using an AI tool to build this, you can also get that to build you a landing page as part of the same project or as a separate project, or you can just use a website creator tool like Webflow. And what you want to see here is you want to see some sort of movement, some sort of traction that's beyond like 1 or 2 or a few interested people. If you start to get like 20, 30 people and they're coming in like a regular cadence, then that's a really, really good sign that you're onto something. And if you're building your waitlist landing page and it's not working, again, just change it. Change it if it's not working. Change the value proposition, test the benefits that you're communicating, test the way that you're positioning the product. All of this stuff can be tested in the distribution phase. This seems complicated, but all it really boils down to is like, test content, show you doing the solution, change it if it's not working, and create a wait list to drive people to see if there's interest for your product. So We've got the build here as well. You've got a very simple MVP. It's got one feature. We're going to work back and forth with AI in order to create the framework and then to create the PRD for that. We use the PRD to feed into the AI coding tool. You can start off with like a Lovable or a Bolt, and you can actually sync them with GitHub, and then you can work with something more complex like a Cursor or a Windsurf later, and then sync that back to Lovable and Bolt if you're working between those two tools, if you're already familiar with them. If you're not, just start playing around with them now, getting familiar with them, how they work, how you interact with them. And then the last step here in the journey is to grow. So this growing is about creating a feedback loop. And by feedback loop, this needs to do a few things. So this needs to provide you with regular insight so that you can continually improve the product over time to get more customers, to convert a higher percentage of people who visit the landing page, to get new types of customers. Growing is also about your daily rituals that lead to compound growth. So by daily rituals, I mean really simple things like messaging 5 people. If you message 5 people a day and you keep doing that over time, that's going to compound, and that's going to grow more and more and more as you keep doing it. Other things that you can do here is like creating one piece of content or posting once, or researching one partner. And this will be unique to your own app, your own products that you're building. You want to create a set of a few things that you're doing on a regular basis every single day or every single week in order to start that kind of compound growth momentum going. The momentum really comes from keeping on doing the small things, keeping on improving the product, keeping on reaching out to new customers, keeping on getting new insight, and that cycle has an exponential growth curve over time that seems slow to start off with, but will then really massively start to scale the product as you go on. Now, when it comes to getting your first customer, obviously this is the full journey here. Ideally, what we want to do is because we've got our wait list that we've set up at the distribution phase, we actually probably want to get our first customer somewhere around here. This is where our first customer is going to come in. There's a customer. We want to get the customer before we build something, and that might be based on like a numbers. You might be figuring this out based on a percentage. So we would say like your first customer, in order to get one customer, that might equal 10 to 50 people on a wait list. And this might equal 200 conversations with people. That seems like a lot, but if you do it individually every day, then that's not a huge amount. And so it's actually like, if you break this down into smaller numbers, it's fairly reasonable to expect that you could get your first customer. If your build takes you 1 month to go from that initial prototype to your first version of your MVP, then you have 1 month to basically get your first customer before you then launch the product. And that is a really, really good way to do it. And if you can't get a first customer, that means you can iterate on the product as you go. But also, if you can't get a customer from that initial distribution effort that you're doing, you can also change your tactics there or change the problem you're solving. And again, this is not an exact science, so you're going to be going like backwards and forwards between these steps to try and figure out where you actually have to go. If this has been helpful, you can get a copy of this over at my newsletter at buildgreatproducts.com. Just sign up there and you'll get a download in the welcome email for this template. And hopefully this has helped give you some context of what the journey looks like going from an app idea or a startup idea through to something that's actually going to make profit and then grow. So that was my 4 things that you need to do in order to make a great app and then actually solve a problem with it and make it into a profitable business. Hopefully, if you're just starting out, if you have an idea, this gives you an overarching framework to think about what that journey might look like. And sure, there's like a load of nuance in each of these different steps, but that overall process, thinking through, how do I validate the idea that I have to make sure I'm solving the right problem? How do I distribute that idea to people? Where are my customers? What social platforms am I posting to? And how am I building an audience around content? How do I then build the product? What tools am I using? How do I create the best first prompt for that MVP of the product? And then how do I grow that product beyond that? By creating a feedback loop that is going to constantly compound growth over time and give me insight that I need to improve that product, to keep on making it better and solving that problem better for people. If you liked the video, then like and subscribe down below. You can get this framework by signing up to my newsletter over at buildgreatproducts.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Build great products. Build great products.